All right, so today we're going to talk about news site 2. Before we do that, since it's been a week since we did news site 1, let's talk through what we did with news site 1. So I have a completed version of news site 1 here. Before we talk about like what each component is doing, can someone just walk me through the what are node modules? Let's just start there. Let's just start at the top and walk through. What are node modules?
All the libraries and stuff.
What's up?
All the libraries and stuff we need for React to work.
Yeah, for our project to work, even why? Yeah, definitely for React to work, for sure. But also for our project, like anything that we download that we need, any other JavaScript libraries. So this is a little bit different than the way Python does it. Python uses virtual environments. JavaScript and Node just use this concept of node modules, and they throw everything into this node modules bin. What is the package JSON and the package lock JSON, Christina? Since you and I want to figure this out.
Package JSON is whatever dependency that the application needs or the React app needs, and then the package.json is if there's any packages missing, then the mock.json file is created with the rest of the dependencies that are needed to run the app.
Yeah, so exactly. So the package JSON list, this lists everything I say, I tell my project, I want React scripts, I want Enzyme. I tell my project I want React DOM. And when I say I tell my project, I'm actually mean like when I do create React app, remember how that builds it out for me? These are all the things that create React app says it wants. The package lock is every single thing that's in this node modules and its versions. So in package JSON, when I say I want like Enzyme, Enzyme might also require itself like 20 other packages. Those don't get listed here because I am not explicitly saying I need those. Enzyme needs those. So the package lock is just a list of all the dependencies I wanted and all the dependencies they wanted and all the dependencies they want, right? So everything here is here with its version. Okay, cool. Public folder. Does anybody remember what's in our public folder? Not much. We usually don't go in here. Go ahead.
The public folder is used for the HTML page, the initial one, in which you'll have a body. There should be a div tag that tells the whole React app to go to this element tag to show everything that's actually going to be happening with React in JSON.
Absolutely. So all we really need, so our fav icon, that's the icon that shows up here in the corner here. So that's in here. But more importantly is index.html. This is the page that actually loads. This is the HTML page that loads when we start our React app. And it has we can put all our metadata and anything we need in here if we had any CDNs that we wanted to bring in. But then also on line 19, the most important thing is that there's a div, and the ID of that div is root. This is where JavaScript does like a get element by ID root, and then basically says load the entire React app into this div, right? So this is kind of the whole point of this HTML file is just so that we have somewhere to load in our JavaScript app. Now we have source. This is most of our app, right? Who can walk me through source? Nick? Just not all of it, but just get us started. Anywhere you want. Dealer's choice. Start with any file.
Let's start with app.js.
That's a good place to start.
That's the kind of main component or function.
Yeah.
Right? That takes whatever you have in there and all its other components, puts them into that index file.
Absolutely.
And then other components that you need inside that app to build your site are their own JSON JavaScript files inside there.
Yeah, so then we have, so our main kind of parent component of everything is app. And it renders, let's see, sorry. It renders all the other components that we're using right now, which are these 3 components. Cool. Is everybody clear on where we're at so far? Any questions? This is all coming back to you, hopefully? Okay, good. Okay, so then we have like a test file. We have some CSS. Let's not worry about the rest of these right now. We'll come back to them. App.js is where we're going to start, and we also want to talk about our components that we have so far. So this application that we're building is going to basically have 2 pages when we're done with it. It'll have like a home page, and the home page will just be like our list view in Django. Remember in Django, if we had like, say, cars, we would have one page that just listed all the cars. Then I could click on a car, and I would go to like the show page for that car. That's all we're going to have, except we're dealing with news articles, right? So we're going to have like a list of news articles on our first page. And if I click on one, I'll see the whole or more information about the article. It's just like a little abstract. I don't think we have full text for these articles. So that's what we're building. And we just have it stubbed out right now. So actually, let's do npm start to start our server and see what it looks like right now, which is this. So all we really have here is the component. So we have like a header that just says what component it is, and then we're rendering the component. Same thing over and over again, right? So we have an app nav component. We're going to change some of this in a minute, and it just has a list of these nav options that are links. If I click on them, nothing happens. We have the article teaser. The teaser is what's going to show up in the list. The list is basically going to be a bunch of these teasers. And all these teasers are like the headline and then the date it was created, right? So that's all we're rendering here. Again, this is a link that does nothing. Then there's the actual article component. So when we build this out, I believe today when we get there, when I click on the actual article, it should render this component down here. Right? So this won't all be on this first page when we're done. This is just where we're at right now. Cool. Questions about where we're at right now before we jump into the new stuff? I feel like I'm trying to gauge about where everyone's at with remembering this stuff.
I have a question that I
Sounds familiar. Good.
I think I asked this question. The state variables, they're always going to be in the app, like the main component?
No, not necessarily. Any component can have state. Any component.
But only one component.
No, any component. More than one component can have state. Any class component, any component we set up with this class, like a class, can have state.
What am I mixing up? I feel like there was a quick lesson about.
So the functional, when we do a functional component, you guys, thank you. When we have a functional component, then the functional component can't have state, right?
Those are going to be stateless.
Yeah. Yes, those are stateless. Any class component can have state. You might have heard that it gets very difficult to manage state when you have a ton of different components passing state up and down and holding on to their own state. So what generally happens in a huge app is you use a state management library called Redux that kind of keeps all the state somewhere else so that the components don't have to do it. Now, just to add another layer of confusion to this whole thing, these functional components that are new now have this thing called hooks that I think is aiming to kind of replace Redux so that you can just use pure React. But we're not at that point yet. But you should know that any class, even though we're not necessarily going to do that today, any class component, because it's a class, it can have state. So
Does anybody else, did Quinn tell us that there's only one component that will have state at a time? Okay.
Maybe.
I feel like I didn't.
Is that what you said?
No,
Yeah.
I told you
Karen
that.
remembers what I'm
I told you that, and that's a good thing. Like just to start out with. I'll give you. You can put state in one of our components, but they have to be top level components. You cannot have a child that has its own state
I see.
of a
Okay.
parent that has state.
Because I remember that being really stressed, right? You stressed that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't make that up. Right?
Ryan, were you gonna add something?
I was just gonna say that that's what you said. Best practice.
That's what I said?
No, someone said
Oh.
best practice is to keep your state at the highest level possible after JF in this case.
Okay.
And delegate downward. And only, I think John said, when you have something like maybe like a real, one of the components is a real or state is needed in that component, then you use a class component that has state. But more than likely, if they're just going to be picked text or something very simple, you want them function components without state.
I think that sounds perfectly right. Yeah, that sounds right. But you can have state in any class component.
That's good to know.
But yes, yeah. And I think for what we're going to do for right now, the only thing that's going to have state right now is our app. Yes, because it is.
It's
Because,
the highest.
yes, and because that is a common complaint or gripe with React is that it becomes so difficult to manage all of this state. But there have been like there's the functional, there's Redux, there's all these things that make it easier now. When it first came out, that was very difficult. All right. Okay. What the hell is this program doing? Okay, so we have an app component. It has a constructor. What's the constructor function?
Like in it.
Yeah, it's like the init function, right? So like in a class, this constructor function runs as soon as we initiate the class. We are taking in props. We always, when we extend from React, we have to super the props. And then this is just some JavaScript. It's picking a random number, and then it's choosing a random article from this news data JSON file, which is here, which is just a JSON file of a bunch of random data. So that's how we're picking our article.
Can I ask one more question?
Please, but only one, then you're done.
You said we're taking in props.
Yes.
Okay, so what are we taking in props?
We're not taking in props, but we still have to do this step
Okay.
for some reason that I don't
Is
understand.
that for creating props for
So-
the other component?
I
I'm trying to remember.
think it's just, and it just expects to,
Oh,
so even though we're not taking in props, props will still be an empty thing that it expects to see, is my assumption. Okay. Where was I? Good question. Sorry, I didn't really have an answer for it. So we're picking a news article, and then these are all our nav items for our nav bar. All that's in state. And then we're also holding our article in the app state right now. Then down here in our render, if I have a class component, I have to have a render. I'm taking article and nav items out of state. What is this called? What am I doing right here on line 60? Destructuring. Yeah. What is destructuring, Chad?
You take in an object and rather than specifically kind of referring to each one individually, you can create variable names there and it automatically allows you to access all the key value pairs.
Absolutely, right? I'm just saying there's something called article, there's something called nav items. They're in the object this.state, so make them their own variables. Exactly. Then down in app nav, I'm passing it all of the nav items that it needs, and I'm also passing it a callback function, which right now just console logs the item that was clicked. Then I have my article teaser. I'm passing it all the article information, as well as a function called handle title click, which also is just console logging right now. And then I have my actual article component. That's that component down here at the bottom. I'm passing it the article. What are these three dots doing? The spread operator. What is the spread operator? What is it? The butter operator. What does it do? Like, how does it work?
Taking everything from that object.
Yeah, so it's like, exactly, it's like taking, so article has something called ID, something called title, something called created date on it, and it's just unpacking I like that like it unpacks all those variables and turns them into their own thing, right? It's another way to think about
Is
it.
it like destruction, like what different?
It's kind of like, yeah, it is. It's almost, it is like destructuring. We're saying like, I want these variables explicitly. Yeah, you're right. It is a little bit like that. And this is saying take all of them and turn them into their own variables. Remove them from the object, basically. You could. I think in this sense we just want to do both ways, right? So you can see both ways. I think here you could get away with that. Cool. This is actually going to screw us up in the end, but here it is. What were you going to say, Christian?
I was going to say, we only wanted the 4 attributes for article teaser.
Yeah.
We want everything.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. So article, I think, has a bunch of, it has the image. We didn't want image. We didn't want byline. That's a really good point. We don't want to pass down props that we're not going to use, right? So you wouldn't, like a bad habit to get into would be able to be doing the spread all the time. It's a really great point. And passing down all this stuff you don't need. So here we're being very explicit because we only need these 3 things. Here we need all of them. So absolutely. Okay, cool. Are there any other questions about News Site 1 before we jump into News Site 2? Okay, cool.
Oh,
Go ahead.
where did you set?
Say that again.
Never mind. I see it now.
Okay. Okay, so News Site 2, I've cloned down here. And it requires us to copy some of the stuff that we did in News Site 1. This is kind of going to be the way all of these go from here forward. Is the work that you've done in the previous one, you'll have to copy over. And I think this one's pretty easy. It says I need article teaser, and app nav. So here's article 2, components, and then source, components. So I need all 3 of these.
Could we just copy the entire source folder?
I wouldn't do that because this components folder has something new in it. Article list. Yeah, I thought you could do that and you can't. You have to copy it. You just have to follow the instructions because each one adds new stuff. It adds new tests. It adds another component. So we're just going to copy these over. Cool. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. Let's ditch this for now. We confirmed it's working. And let's open Site 2. Okay, so fingers crossed, this should just work as before. Let's find out. Yep, thank you. What does that do, Ryan? Installs what? Installs what?
Installs all your node modules.
Yeah. So it reads my package JSON and installs everything I need, and installs everything that those installs need, etc. You can see I don't have a node modules folder up here, but after I run this, it should pop up here. This will take about 45 minutes.
I did with a yarn in like 4 seconds.
Yarn is faster?
I don't know. He was just.
It would appear that way, or he just adds the fastest.
Well, I don't know. This is it's internet dependent, right? It would be the Mac one.
Well, Yarn might keep cache files and go, oh, you already have this cache. So,
I don't know. Yeah.
All right, a bunch of warnings and errors later. Come on, come on, come on. Here we go. Yeah. NPM start. And it looks like should be the same. Oh, actually, it should be nothing. Okay. Can't resolve component nav. Oh, damn it. This happened yesterday. Okay. We're going to go here. We're going to go here. Actually, can someone read this error and tell me, like, let's track it down together. This is a learning moment. Module not found. Can't resolve components nav nav.js in blah, 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 blah. We're probably getting the same error down here. So where am I going to go? Damn it. Where am I going to go to solve this error? So I didn't import it. Why is Chad? Talk me through that thinking, because this is good, like debugging thinking.
So I guess I think app.js doesn't know about another module.
That's probably the case. Yeah. Well, it can't resolve, meaning it can't read this path. Like it doesn't. This is not giving it what it wants. And then I know the file is right here. It's giving me the file source.app.js, source app.js. So I'm going to go into app.js. So good. Now I know where to look, and I know that it's something with this path. So I'm going to go up here. So this path is trying to import nav from components nav.js. So let's see. I'm going to go into components. Anybody see the problem? There is no nav. It's called app nav. I have no idea how this happened. I'm going to have to change this. So I have two ways that I can fix this. I can change the name of this and everything in here. Or I can go back to app and change it to app nav, which I think is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to say app. Oops, that's not making it worse. App nav. App nav, and then is there, yeah, and then who did this? It was probably me. Every time I get mad, it's me.
No. You with more
that guy, he needed to get his act together. All right, so now, cool, we're back. We don't have an error. Now, we're not loading anything because the only thing we should be seeing is app nav. But wait a minute. We should at least be seeing our nav items, right? Warning component app nav. The href attribute requires a valid value. Oh, let's just check out app nav and see what's wrong with it. Here we go.
href.
The stepprops.nav items.
Href, that hashtag right there.
That's fine. This is just a warning. I want to know why my nav items aren't showing up. Look. Okay, so app nav is getting nav items from props. So let's go to app.js. This.state.nav items is nav items. This is a pickle.
Change the name of the app. Should you the component? Should you restart the server? Maybe.
I don't know. What the hell? Let's try.
Change the name of one of the components. Pretty big.
Where are my nav items?
You just screwed.
Oh, there they are.
Right.
They were hiding. That is annoying. Okay, cool. So here's our nav. For some reason, this app component removed everything else. Actually, I know why. It's because we're going to kind of rebuild it. But we have those same components. Even though we're not rendering them right now, we still have the article component. We still have the article list, the article teaser. All of that stuff is the same. We're going to implement it in a different way today. So the big things that we're going to add today, we're going to add two. Let me make sure I'm not jumping ahead to tomorrow. Yeah, so we're going to add two concepts today. So on Friday, basically we just said this is how we start up React and this is how we make a couple of components. Now we're going to start organizing stuff and adding some more functionality. We're going to add two different concepts today. We're going to build on our adding components by adding pages. So what we're going to do is, I said this earlier, we're going to start to think about our app as being made up of two different pages. The first will be the home page, and the second will be, we're going to call it the article page. And each page is going to be made up of many components, right? So we have a page that kind of is our big template, and then we build it out with a bunch of components inside of it, right? So we're going to organize that a little bit differently, and we'll see how that works. The other thing we're going to add is the concept of routing. So we had our routes in Django, and that was like if I type in, like myapp.com/cars/1, what is that going to give me? Does anybody remember? The car with ID 1. The car with ID 1. You remember that? So we had like, so we're going to add that concept to Django as well using a library called React Router. Or, sorry, we're going to add that concept to React using something called React Router. Well, so those are the two things we're going to be working with. And that way, when someone types a URL up here, they can still navigate to different parts of our page, even though it's not necessarily going to make a new GET request. It's just a different way for them to navigate through our app. We'll see how it works in a second. It's like the same kind of, it gives us the same functionality as an app that keeps everything on the back end, but it just works under the hood. It works a little bit different. All right. Anyway, that's too much conceptual. We'll see how it works in a second. So we need to do a couple of things to get started before we can actually implement all this stuff. Let's see. I moved all that stuff over. We're gonna and then at the end we're gonna do Bootstrap too. So I'm gonna install Bootstrap. We're gonna install a bunch of stuff. This is gonna take a while. Yeah. Cool. Then we're going to do npm install React Strap. So Bootstrap we know Bootstrap. Then there's something called React Strap, which gives us basically components that we can wrap other components in, and they are already styled for us. So we'll see how that works. But React Strap needs Bootstrap. That's why we're getting both. I know, it's annoying. Okay, then one last thing I need to do to get Bootstrap going is in index.js. I need to import Bootstrap. Okay, so that's that. We'll come back to that later. I don't know why they're having us do this up front.
Where did you get that? Bootstrap.
I copy and pasted it from the curriculum because there's no way I would remember this. Cool. I think that's all we need right now. We'll come back to React Router in a minute. Should just wait on that. Okay. So go away. So we had app nav article and article teaser are from last time. We have a new component called article list. So first we're going to stub this out, and then we can start building our pages from there. So article list is already kind of set up for us a little bit. And this is going to be, like when I go to my homepage, this is going to be a huge list, article list, of these article teaser components, right? So remember, the article teaser is just a link to the title, with the title and the created date. So it's going to be a huge list of titles and created dates that are going to be taken care of by this component. So let me read in the curriculum exactly what this needs. So article list is going to be passed an array of articles and a function called handle click. That's it. And so the article list component will receive, so we have to loop through the articles and make a bunch of article teasers. Does that make sense? So we have to loop through each article, loop through all the articles, and for each one we need to make a teaser. So I'm going to do that here in the render. Say const articles equals. Now I know just from the curriculum that I'm expected to get the articles as props, right? So I'm going to get a prop called articles. So I'm going to do this dot props dot articles, and then I'm going to do dot map. Are we all clear on what map does? You feel good about it? Cool. So map is going to give me the article. I'm going to want the index as well. Let's close that for a minute. And so map takes a callback function, and that callback function is going to get the article and the index. And then for each one, I want to do turn. And then I want to make an article teaser. And the article teaser, what does that take in? Article teaser takes in the handle click, the title, the ID, and the created date. And those are all, okay. So then it's going to be ID equals article.id. I'm going to put this on another line. What else did I say? I already forgot. The title. Thank you. Yeah, created, date. Yep. Thank you. And then that handle clip, right? And I'm going to get, so this is where like passing a function down two levels basically, because article list is going to get a handle click in the props, and then it's going to pass that function to every single instance of this article teaser. So props dot handle click. I want to make sure it's handle title click. Is that what it's called? So now what this is where we start to get like just a little frustrating. Like I have to call this the exact same thing that it's being called here, which is handle title click. So this would have exploded. So this is, oh, I don't even know how that, what is this? I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what that is. Handle title click. Cool.
Can you go back to that?
Actually, I think I need to fix this in a second. What do you want to see?
The article teaser again?
Yeah, let's check that out.
I just wanted to see. Can you scroll over so I can see everything that's not starting? So ID, you're automatically here. Oh wait, no. So where did you get ID?
ID right here.
No, she's talking about the loop. So you're using map, that's why.
Oh,
Where?
The map function.
I'm just trying to see where you got what you're passing in.
Oh,
Like,
here?
so yeah, how do you know what things you need there? Like, where are you getting this?
From looking at this, I know
Yeah.
this dot props, it needs handle click from props. It needs ID from props. It needs
it
title
means I
from
need to
props.
go into handle title.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, this is getting passed in down here. And actually, I think it is super confusing. I agree. This is, the more you get, the more you do it.
Anything that's on that line or anything that's in that div,
So that article teaser component, if you look at the J article, I would call that
is it anything that's
app.js.
used in there?
Yeah, that's like the prototype. Like when that render thing that he has in the other file, it's got to mimic that. When you use it in the subcomponent, it's got to look just like that, so it pass all those things or blow up.
Actually, I don't think I need to do this. I forget if this is the way to do it or not. We'll find out. I can't remember what I did yesterday. Okay, so for right now, let's do npm. Actually, let's do npm and run our tests. Let's see if our tests pass. Cool, so where do we blow up? Hopefully not in article list, except this.props.articles and displays. Where is this blowing up? Expected article list.length to be. Oh, well, here, I know what the problem is. We made all these articles and then never rendered them. So that would, that seems to get us right to the bottom of it. Okay, so that's part of that. Yeah, and then this says, oh, we need to patch. So when we have a big list of stuff, we've seen this before in React, whenever we have a big list. Basically, anytime I map over a huge array and I return a list, each one, I need to pass it a prop called key. And that just helps React keep track of everything in the list. And I always just pass it. So when we do map will give us each element in the array. If I want, optionally, I can pass it a second argument that'll be the index. And so that's just a really easy thing to throw in here. So I just throw I in there. That should get rid of this error.
So you could have deleted the I or added key.
Yeah. So yeah, the I isn't necessary for this.
But you wanted to keep this. You had to add it.
Exactly. And I can call it index if I want to. I just call it I. What's up?
Would you usually use the index or the ID for the key, or does it
I guess it doesn't matter as long as it has a, you're right, that's actually a really good point. We could use the ID since we already have it here. I don't see a problem with that off the top of my head. Yeah, I think that would be okay. Okay. So we passed our tests. That's good.
Question. So
Yeah.
These need to be unique, but only within the element of listing element.
Say that one more time. I'm sorry.
The key needs to be unique, but only within the element of listing element.
That yeah, no, I don't think across the app, as far as I know, just in
That's
that
why we
list.
use index. The index for each one of these.
Yeah. You know, and it must be because I've done this other places in an app and it's worked. So yeah, I think just that list. It just wants to know that it can keep track of that list. Okay. So we have stubbed out this article list. Pretty similar to what we were doing on Friday, right? Just stubbing out these components. We haven't really used them to build anything useful yet. So hopefully that's going to be our next thing to do.
Can we see it?
We can.
I mean, is it different?
Wait, can we? Where is this? We will. How about that? We will. We will. We will. We shall.
It shouldn't be different. No, it should have this.
We should have the article.
Well, this is a brand new component. We haven't seen this one yet. And this is article list. An article list renders a bunch of article teasers. So we're really going to start getting into the nesting of these components now. And it's going to be, that's going to start to become a little bit more complicated and something that you're just going to start to train yourself to keep track of.
But shouldn't, if you're passing on your test, I don't mean to be.
No, do not being
You're
anything.
passing on the test, and like React's always just like running, right? So shouldn't it just like be there now?
Well, we're not ever telling, so we're telling article list to render a bunch of article teasers. We're never rendering article list
It's a
though.
different page, right?
Yeah, article list isn't rendering, and we're not calling it anymore. Yeah. We're about to get to that though. So let's get to this next part with the router, and then we'll take a break. Okay, so we have all the pieces now to build our pages. Now we're going to install the router so that when someone goes to just localhost /, they're going to see our home page. And then what we want them to be able to do is go to /articles / any number and get that number article. So those are the two things we want to set up. React doesn't have routing built in. That's not part of it. So there's a library called React Router that does all that. Does it have it built in now?
No,
It might.
I'm just
Oh, okay.
questioning something.
No, go ahead.
So what's primarily, you said React Router, I was like, whoa, what is primarily going to handle our routing when the whole picture comes into play? Back end or front end? Or both?
Both.
Ah.
It's going to be a little bit of both. It's going to be a little bit of both because like whatever view you want them to see, you'll probably have a React handle like, I want to show them this page, I want to show them this page. But then fetching your data is going to be a whole different route. Like it'll be fine. It's not as bad as it sounds. It's not as bad as it sounds. It really isn't.
Not that bad, I promise.
No. But yeah, you'll be doing both. Okay, install React-router-dom. Oops. God, these errors. All right. Okay, so we're going to set up the React router. I'm going to stop doing that. And then we'll move on. So we're going to use React router in the main portion of our app in app.js. So in order to use React router, first I have to import it. I'm just going to copy this. So I have to type it out. This is in the curriculum. So I'm importing something called browser router. I'm changing it to router. So browser router as router, that just changes the variable for me. And then I'm also importing something called route. So I'm going to have router and I'm going to have route. These are new components that I'm bringing in, and I get them from React router. So if you remember, like in Django, we had it was something like URL patterns or something. I don't remember what that array is called. like that. And then in each one of those, we had our routes, right? And the route usually consisted of like the actual route, like /cars. Then it was a function to run, right? Like views.all or car, something like that. And then we had that name thing, which we're not going to have an equivalent of here. The most important are the things is that we had a list of routes. Each route had like that route itself and the function to run. Okay, so we're going to have the same concept here, even though it functions a little bit differently. The concept is the same. We're going to tell React Router, this is the route I want you to look for. When you see this route, instead of run this function, we'll kind of run. You're going to say render this component. When someone hits this route, render this component. Okay, so the way we set that up is we do it in our return down here, and we're going to have to do a couple of things. First, we're going to have to make a div, because remember, you can in your return you can only return one element, right? It can have a bunch of elements inside of it, but it only can have one. And since we're going to have a bunch of stuff, we need to have like a parent div for it. And then I'm going to move this back up here. And then let's see. So then I'm going to make an instance of the router, that I brought in. And router's a little bit different. Most of our components so far have been self-closing, right? Router is a component that I can nest stuff inside of. Cool? So I know, just new stuff after new stuff. Now, in router, I can make a bunch of instances of this route component. But that one is actually self-closing, so I don't know why it's doing that. Cool. And I tell the route the two things that I want it to do. I'm going to say exact path, because I want it to look for exactly what I'm going to pass it, and then it's going to be /. So this is saying when someone goes to the home page, when the path is exactly this, the component I want to render, lowercase, is going to be something called home page, which I have not created yet, right? And then home page is going to be a component with the article list inside of it and whatever else I want to put in. Then I'm going to make another route called, it's going to be /articles/article ID. Now, you remember when we had Django and we did the ID, we had like, I can't remember the syntax exactly, but it was like caret, int, and then what I wanted it to be called. And that told Django, hey, this is a variable. And you need whatever is here in the route, save it to a variable. The syntax for that exact same concept is just putting a colon in front of something. So now if I go to articles/2, 2 will get saved into a variable called article ID, right? So basically articles/anything will save the anything part to something called article ID. Cool? Okay. And when that happens, I want to render the article page. And basically that's going to be a page that's going to take this article ID, say it's 4, it's going to look up the 4th article and then render all the information. Cool? Actually, I think I'm going to have to comment this out, otherwise it's going to explode. Actually, it's going to explode no matter what. Let's just, yeah, because we don't have that anything. But let's follow the error messages and see where they get us. We'll do npm start. Over here. Cool, homepage is not defined. So I went to / and it tried to render that homepage. So we know this is working. If I go to article 2 homepage, so it just takes both of them. Cool. Okay, so let's start with homepage. So now what we're going to do here is it's just one way to organize it. I don't know enough to say that this is absolutely the standard, but this is the way the curriculum is written, and it's also just a nice way to organize things. So all of our components that are just like, just regular components go in components. But anything that's a page, something that's going to kind of stand alone as a whole page, we're going to put in its own directory. So they're still components. They're still technically components, but we're just sectioning them off in something called, in a different folder so that we can keep track of them. It'll make more sense as we do it. So I'm going to make a new folder in source called pages. Oh, that already exists. So I'm not going to do that because it is right here. Oh, this is all done for us? Kick ass. Okay. So you'll notice we have a new folder called Pages. Yeah, right? In Pages are our two page components. So we're working on Homepage right now. Homepage is a component just like the other ones. And it's rendering article list, which is the component we just stubbed out, right? So it's rendering article list. I wonder if this is just going to work. It's passing it news. News is this JSON file. Line 9. Yeah, here. Here, let me put the word wrap on. How the hell do you do that? There you go. Is that? So this is just saying console log, like we're going to fill this out later. That's it. It's just saying we need to work on that later. Okay, so actually this looks like it's done. So all I need to do is import it. Cool. Wait. There it is. So now, real quick, we'll break this down and then we'll take a break. So we are rendering in our app nav, in our return, in our render, sorry, we have the app nav, then we have the router. And right now the router only has one route that it recognizes, which is slash. When I go to slash, it renders home page, which I'm bringing on up here. Home page in Pages is a component. It returns the article list component, which it is also importing up here. So now we'll go back down the chain to the article list. The article list component is bringing in the article teaser. It maps through all the articles it gets, makes the teaser. You mind exploding it? And now we go to the teaser, which is here. And finally, the teaser is just a link with the title and the created date. And that's what we're seeing here, a big list of links with these titles and created dates, and the links don't do anything yet. Cool? Questions on where we're at right now? Yeah, go ahead.
What's your opinion on those semicolons?
Semicolons?
Yeah.
You mean
Like on the info statements we have them and some other ones we don't.
my opinion is that when they're already there, I'll leave them there, but I don't write them myself.
Yeah.
But I will also go a little bit further and say I think that might be a shitty opinion. So I will listen to someone else on that. Yeah. I don't know why I'm not navigating. Do you want to see the render right here?
That simplifies our render.
Oh, yeah. And it makes it much clearer. It's much easier to be able to read through the routes and be like, this is loading this, this is loading this, this is loading this. It's easier to trace. And it feels a little bit more Django-y, which hopefully will help the transition a little bit. But
is this considered a single page?
yeah, it's still technically a single page app, yes, because it's only loading one page of HTML, right? And it's just changing the view based on the JavaScript.
What do you have in Pages again? You have article list and home page?
Yes, which we haven't done article list yet.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, we haven't done article page. Yeah.
Okay, we have done.
No.
Okay. Article page would be where we go from there.
Yeah, so ideally, when we click on this, it'll render the article page for this article.
That is
Cool. All right, let's take 10 minutes. We'll come back at 10. Let's come back at 10:05. A little bit.